I'd like to start off with talking about legislators. A lot of people in Bosnia do not have a positive experience with their legislators. They do not go back to their district. They do not listen to the needs of their constituents. They sit around in cafes, restaurants during the workday, unfortunately. I wanted to know what's a typical workday like for Congressman Scott Perry?
Well, we're really busy, and I suspect they are too, but sitting around in the coffee bar is not part of the schedule. You're attending hearings, you're working on legislation, you're getting briefings, you're meeting with constituents, and of course it's a little different when you're in the district. That's almost entirely meeting with constituents and being present for constituents.
Do you have a chauffeur?
I do not have a chauffeur. I've got a car with about 270,000 miles on it that I drive myself.
The cost of living here in D.C. is quite expensive. Do you receive a cost of living adjustment for moving here?
I don't. No, you get your paycheck and you work it out.
If you were to, for some reason, to transition out of Congress, would you receive a severance package to help you with that transition?
No, you go get a job.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you feel when you hear about that a lot of Bosnian elected officials get these benefits and more?
Well, this is up to the people of Bosnia, right? So we have helped them and encouraged them to set up their system so that it suits what their needs are. And of course, we want to provide an example as the United States of America about being servants, being elected by the people and being servants of the people. But it's really up to them to demand that from their elected officials.
You sponsored the DHS SAVE Act after you came to information that there was about $2.5 million worth of waste in the vehicle management fleet of the Department of Homeland Security.
Right.
Now, $2.5 million, that's a drop in the bucket of the U.S. budget, which is over $4 trillion.
A lot of drops in the bucket fill the bucket, and it's not only the amount of money, but it's it sends a signal that these things, this waste, this rampant waste, and the acceptance of that is not acceptable. We work hard for our money. Everybody around the world works hard for the money that they earn, and it's not acceptable to just squander it because you can. And so we wanted to send a message that that's not appropriate, even if it's $1. $1, 1 dime, 1 penny, it's too much if it's being wasted. Taxpayers don't mind paying for what they're getting, but they don't want to see their money wasted, and they certainly don't want to see government officials thumb their nose at their citizens while they're wasting the money.
During government shutdowns, you want your paycheck withheld. You do not want to receive that money. Why is that?
Well, again, you're a servant, and you know that there are other people that work for the government that don't have any ability to make a difference in that decision. They don't get a vote. They're not here making the arguments yet. Their mortgages are coming due, their car payments are coming due, and you know, they have to pay their bills as well. So we want to let them know, or certainly I want to let them know, that they understand their circumstances and living through the same circumstances as a person that has a vote on this.
Bosnia was in an emergency situation for over a year, did not have a formed government.
Right.
Now, one investigative outlet, they did an analysis of the work of the parliament over there, and they determined that from December 2018 to August 2019, so a period of 9 months, parliamentarians did a total of 12 hours and 53 minutes worth of work. Now, none of them rejected that money. They all took that money in.
Right.
Now, given that, I mean, you served in the U.S. military over there.
Yes.
Given that all of this money that we spent over there to help the Bosnian people, but also to secure our own interests in having a stable Europe. When you hear something like that, 12 hours, 53 minutes, and drivers, phones, security details, discounted steaks in the parliament cafeteria, what comes through your mind? Would you maybe want to be a Bosnian politician instead of here in the U.S.?
No, I don't think I would be able to function well in that circumstances. You also have to have a sense of a moral compass about doing what's right, and again, being a servant. And so it's obviously, it's disappointing, and I would say to my friends that I spent a year of my life with in Bosnia, who are wonderful people. I have nothing but the best of memories of all of them, that I would hope that they would see that that's unacceptable and take the opportunity at the very nearest, the very soonest chance to make a different selection for your leadership across the board. It's incumbent upon them to be informed about their elected officials, understand that those elected officials should be serving the citizens' interest, and if they're not, then you need to get a new elected official. We had to fight for our freedoms in America, It might have been a couple hundred years ago, but somebody has to be willing to stand up and say, this is not acceptable. When I say fight, I'm not encouraging anybody to take up arms, but certainly peaceful protests and changing governance to mirror something that more supports what you as an individual person believe should be enshrined in governance.
Recently there was a comprehensive analysis top-down of the Bosnian judicial system. It determined that there's not a single functioning jurisdiction in the country, that prosecutors are elected to prosecute even easy cases of corruption against public officials, and that there's a high level of political control of the judiciary. The reason I mention all of this is that this is largely a system conceived and funded by the U.S. government. Now, we contacted the U.S. Embassy to find out how much was spent on this, and they gave us a preliminary figure. We're doing the research to find the exact dollar amount, but of hundreds of millions of dollars. Given the results, given that there is a system that is not serving the needs of its constituents or our American interests, how do you feel about hundreds of millions of dollars going over to Bosnia?
Well, I certainly am concerned about from the first penny. We want to make sure it's spent wisely. Now, I will tell you that I'm not familiar with hundreds of millions of dollars on the judicial system. It's my understanding that we spent just short of $10 million encouraging over a 5-year period, which that period just ended recently per the program's requirements, to try and set up a Western-style judicial system free of corruption and independent. But once again, we're trying to help the people of Bosnia craft their own system so that it suits their needs, but yet meets the tenets of anti-corruption and independence. And so we're willing to help, but again, we're not willing to throw money down a rat hole. And the program ran its course, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it has met the goals.
The hundreds of millions of dollars was a total amount since independence. How much can the U.S. help? I mean, do you believe in the saying that at the end of the day, the people get the government that they deserve?
Unfortunately, it is true. When I say unfortunately, there are often people that don't deserve the government that's there, but there's not enough of them to make the change, but they still get it anyhow. Once again, the United States, and I think all our partners, European partners and otherwise, are willing to help, but we want Bosnia to choose its own destiny. So we set the framework, and along with the framework, or an integral part of the framework, is the stability of not having a war going on.
The U.S. ambassador called out the High Judicial and Prosecutorial Council, which is kind of this body that oversees the whole judicial system in Bosnia. Now, the president of that body says that there is no room for legislative oversight, that it would be incompatible with the separation of branches and undemocratic. What do you think about that as a legislator?
Well, it depends on how far the oversight goes. You do want independent branches.
You said no oversight. So
it's hard for me to imagine. I don't want to disparage anybody unduly and be ill-informed, but it's hard to imagine that no oversight is appropriate.
Congressman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.